All right, get ready, because today we are going deep into the 1987 Philippine Constitution.
Yeah,
We've got the full text right here and ready to break down its core principles and see, how they still matter today.
it really is amazing how just one document can capture the hopes of a whole nation, especially one coming out of such a tough past.
Yeah.
It's more than just laws. It's about setting the stage for the future they wanted.
It's like a phoenix rising, right?
Yeah,
And they start strong with a powerful preamble.
right.
And it's not just legal stuff, it's a statement about their identity.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so important to remember the context.
Yeah.
This Constitution was created in 1986 after years of authoritarian rule. So when you see phrases like building a just and humane society,
Yeah.
it has so much weight,
Ah,
you know? It's a promise of a new beginning.
a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like imposed from above,
Yeah.
right? This came from the people through the Constitutional Commission.
Exactly.
Right.
Signed on October 15th, 1986, it marked a return to democracy. And that preamble sets the tone for everything that follows.
Yeah.
They're laying out their hopes: truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, peace.
Wow, it's like a manifesto for a nation rebuilding itself.
Yeah.
And they jump right into specifics.
They do.
Article 1 defines their territory, no messing around.
It's like drawing a line and saying,
Yeah.
this is us, the Philippines, claiming its archipelago, the waters, the seabed, everything within their sovereign.
Right. A bold statement of ownership, especially after so much colonial influence.
Definitely.
But a nation is more than just its physical space.
Yeah.
So Article 2, that's where it gets really interesting, the guiding principles.
This is where it gets real.
Yeah,
This lays out the character of the Philippine state, the values that should guide its actions.
right.
And they make it clear right away the Philippines is a democratic and republican state. Power comes from the people.
No more dictators.
Oh, yeah.
Power to the people. But they also talk about their place in the world, which is really interesting given their history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Having experienced the horrors of war, they dedicate Section 2 to renouncing war as a national policy.
Okay.
They choose to embrace international law and diplomacy, pushing for peace and cooperation globally.
So it's a nation built on peace, not aggression.
Yes.
But internally, they're also careful about power dynamics.
Yeah.
There's a clear message about the military.
Section 3 is very firm. Civilian authority is supreme.
Okay.
The armed forces, while essential for defense, are subordinate to civilian leadership.
Right.
It's a safeguard against the kind of military rule they just escaped.
Checks and balances from the start.
Exactly.
But a government's power isn't just about control.
No.
It's about responsibility to its people.
And they address that directly in Section 4, stating the government's primary duty is to serve and protect the people.
Okay.
They even acknowledge that citizens might be called to defend the state,
Right.
but it's presented as a shared responsibility.
So it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
The government serves, and the people may be called upon to contribute. We can't talk about a constitution without those fundamental freedoms. The Bill of Rights.
Oh, that's the heart of it. Article 3 is where the individual takes center stage.
Right.
It's all about protecting those essential liberties for every Filipino citizen. And there's some big ones in here.
Like due process and equal protection under the law. That's always a big one.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
It's about ensuring everyone gets a fair shake in the legal system, no matter their background.
Right.
But they don't stop their freedom of speech expression, the press,
Yeah.
the cornerstones of a democracy. They're all laid out in Section 4.
It's about having your voice heard and challenging authority. And we can't forget freedom of religion, a sensitive topic in many places.
It is, and they tackle it head on in Section 5, guaranteeing the free exercise of religion without any preference or discrimination.
Right.
And their crystal clear separation of church and state. No religious tests for exercising your rights.
It's about ensuring freedom of belief for all.
Yes,
But what happens when someone's accused of a crime? They have rights too.
absolutely. Section 14 focuses on the rights of the accused in criminal prosecutions.
Okay.
The presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The right to a fair trial, protection from self-incrimination. It's all about making sure the system is just even when dealing with the accused.
So they've laid out the values, defined their territory, and protected individual liberties.
I have.
But how does this translate into a working government?
That's where the framework of governance comes in. The 1987 Constitution sets up 3 distinct branches: legislative, executive, judicial. That classic separation of powers to prevent anyone becoming too powerful.
No more one-person rule.
Exactly.
Can you give us a quick rundown of each branch?
Sure. Article 6 establishes the legislative branch, the Congress of the Philippines, made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Okay.
They're the lawmakers, the ones responsible for writing and enacting the laws of the land.
Congress makes the laws, but what about putting those laws into action?
Right.
Who handles that?
That's the role of the executive branch, led by the president and vice president. Article 7 outlines their responsibilities, which include implementing and enforcing the laws passed by Congress.
And finally, we have the judges.
Yes.
What's their role?
Article 8 establishes the judicial branch headed by the Supreme Court. They're the interpreters of the law, making sure it's applied fairly and settling legal disputes.
Okay.
It's a system designed for checks and balances, each branch with a distinct role.
So we've got the lawmakers, the law enforcers, and the law interpreters.
Right.
But it's not enough to just have these branches.
No.
They need a way to be held accountable.
And that's where Article 11 comes in, focusing on the accountability of public officers.
Okay.
It's stated very clearly public office is a public trust.
Right.
It's a reminder that those in power are there to serve the people, not the other way around.
It's about ensuring power comes with responsibility.
Exactly.
And when that trust is broken, there need to be consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sections 2 and 3 describe the process of impeachment for high-ranking officials who abuse their power.
Oh, okay.
It's a safeguard against corruption at the highest levels. But what about complaints against officials who aren't at that level?
That's where the Office of the Ombudsman comes in, right?
Yes.
It's like a watchdog for the people.
You got it. Sections 5 through 14 detail the role of the Ombudsman in investigating and addressing complaints against public officials, ensuring no one is above the law.
We've covered a lot here. The nation's values, its territory, the protection of individual freedoms, and the structure of its government. It's clear that the 1987 Philippine Constitution is more than just a document.
Yes.
It's a blueprint for a nation trying to rebuild and reshape itself.
It is a blueprint.
Yeah. Okay, so we've seen how the 1987 Constitution sets up a democratic Philippines.
Right.
But what about their economy, like the practical side of things?
That's where Article 12 comes in, national economy and patrimony.
Okay.
It's like their plan for managing resources, promoting growth, and protecting their national treasures.
It's like the economic game plan for this new democracy. What are some of the key plays?
Well, right away in Section 1, they set their goals.
Okay.
They're not just aiming for any kind of growth. They want it to be equitable,
Right.
leading to a better quality of life for all Filipinos, especially the underprivileged.
So it's not just about profits.
No.
It's about people, which makes sense considering they're building a more just society.
Exactly. Social justice is woven through this whole document.
Right.
A big part of that is fairness when it comes to the nation's resources. Section 2 declares that all those natural treasures, the lands, waters, minerals,
Yeah.
they belong to the state, meaning the Filipino people.
It's a powerful statement after centuries of colonial exploitation.
It is.
But does that mean no one else can touch those resources? How do they balance development with protection?
That's the challenge, right? They set some ground rules. Those resources can't just be sold off to the highest bidder.
Okay.
The exploration and use have to be under the control and supervision of the state.
So no fire sales. But they do allow for partnerships, right?
Yeah, they do. Filipinos can't do it all alone.
Right.
They allow for joint ventures and production sharing agreements.
Okay.
But there's a catch. At least 60% of the capital has to be owned by Filipino citizens.
Oh, wow.
They're open to collaboration, but they want Filipinos to stay in control.
It's about protecting their interests and making sure the benefits stay within the Philippines.
Exactly.
What about those agricultural lands? They're treated differently, right?
Yeah. Yes, agricultural lands are considered alienable, meaning they can be privately owned.
Oh, okay.
But even then, there are limits on how much land corporations can hold
Okay.
to prevent monopolies and ensure opportunities for smaller farmers.
So they're trying to create a more level playing field for land ownership,
Yes.
giving people a stake in their future. And speaking of stakes, what about foreign investment?
That's always a tricky one. They recognize the need for foreign capital.
Mm-hmm.
But Article 12, particularly Section 11, emphasizes Filipino ownership and control, especially in strategic sectors like public utilities.
It's like saying, we're open for business, but we're not giving away the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
It's smart considering their history.
It's about charting their own course.
Yeah.
They want partnerships, but on their terms.
Right. And we can't talk about the economy without talking about the workers,
Absolutely.
the people who power it.
That's where Article 13 comes in, social justice and human rights, with a big focus on labor.
Okay.
Section 3 is clear about protecting workers' rights. They have the right to organize, to bargain collectively, and even to strike.
Oh, wow.
Powerful tools to ensure fair treatment and decent working conditions.
It's giving workers a voice, a way to stand up for themselves.
Yes,
But it goes beyond collective rights, doesn't it? What about individual protections?
of course. The Constitution guarantees security of tenure, humane working conditions, and a living wage.
Okay.
They're trying to build a system where work isn't just about survival, it's about dignity and fairness.
It's about making sure economic growth translates into a better life for the people doing the work.
Right.
And speaking of fairness, we can't forget land reform,
Right.
a huge issue in many developing nations.
And they tackle it head on, starting with Section 4 of Article 13.
Okay.
They recognize the right of landless farmers and farm workers to own the land they work.
Wow.
It's about empowering those who work the land to have a stake in their livelihood.
It's addressing historical inequalities and creating a more just system for land ownership.
Yes.
But land reform isn't a one-time fix, is it?
Right. Section 5 stresses the need for ongoing government support
Okay.
through research technology and financial assistance. It's not just handing over land, it's creating a system where those farmers can thrive.
So it's a holistic approach, recognizing that land reform needs more than just redistribution.
It does.
But it's not just rural areas.
Yeah.
The Philippines has big cities too. What about urban land reform and housing?
That's covered in Section 9. They mandate a continuing program to provide decent and affordable housing for the underprivileged and homeless,
Right.
recognizing that everyone deserves a safe place to live.
It's about ensuring the benefits of development reach everyone in urban areas too.
Yes, not just those in rural communities.
What about people already living in inadequate housing? Are there protections for them?
That's crucial, and Section 10 offers some safeguards.
Okay.
It prohibits evictions and demolitions without due process
Okay.
and mandates that any such actions must be just and humane.
So no bulldozing people's homes without fair procedures and considering their well-being.
Right.
Now a healthy society needs more than just homes. It needs health care too.
Absolutely. And Section 11 addresses that, calling for a comprehensive approach to health development.
Okay.
It's about making sure essential healthcare goods and social services are available and affordable for all Filipinos, especially the most vulnerable.
It's like they're saying healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Then they go further. What about ensuring the medicines and food people consume are safe?
Section 12 tasks the state with establishing a strong food and drug regulatory system.
Okay.
It's about protecting consumers from harmful products and ensuring access to quality healthcare and food.
It's about looking out for their citizens' well-being.
Yes.
But they also realize a healthy society is one where people participate and have a voice.
That's where Section 15 comes in, acknowledging the role of people's organizations.
Okay.
They encourage independent groups that let citizens come together, advocate for their interests, and contribute to a better society.
It's recognizing the power of collective action and citizen participation.
Absolutely.
But it's not enough just to have these organizations. They need to be heard.
And Section 16 addresses that, guaranteeing the right of the people and their organizations to participate in decision-making
Okay.
at all levels, social, political, and economic.
Right.
It's about making sure decisions aren't made in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
They need input from those affected.
It's participatory democracy, making sure the people shape their own future.
Yes.
But having rights is one thing. Protecting those rights, especially human rights, is another.
Right. That's where the human rights section of Article 13 gets interesting.
Yeah.
They establish an independent commission on human rights in Section 17,
Okay.
giving it the power to investigate violations, recommend protections, and monitor the government's compliance with international human rights obligations.
It's setting up a watchdog to safeguard human rights. And it's got some teeth, right?
It does. Section 18 outlines those powers,
Okay.
including investigating all kinds of human rights violations, providing legal aid to victims, and even visiting jails, prisons, and detention centers.
Wow.
They're serious about upholding human rights.
It's a powerful mechanism for accountability.
Yes.
Making sure abuses don't go unchecked. But human rights are always changing, aren't they?
They are, and that's why Section 19 is so important.
Okay.
It allows Congress to expand the Commission's authority based on its recommendations.
So they're prepared for new challenges.
They are. They recognize that new challenges will come up, and they want the Commission to adapt.
It's about future-proofing human rights protections. They've covered a lot here, from the economy and labor rights to land reform, housing, healthcare, and human rights.
It's a lot.
It's a pretty comprehensive vision for a just and equitable society.
It is impressive how much they packed into Article 13.
Yeah.
They're really laying the groundwork for a society that prioritizes the well-being of all its citizens.
But a nation is more than just its laws and economy.
Right.
It's about its people, its culture, its aspirations. I think that's where we'll see the Filipino spirit shine through in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've gone through the core of the 1987 Philippine Constitution,
Yeah.
exploring their vision for a just and fair society.
Right.
But societies change over time, right?
Yeah.
How did they plan to keep this document relevant for the future?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. They built in a system for change, a way to actually adapt the Constitution itself.
Oh,
It's Article 77, amendments or revisions. So they knew this wasn't set in stone.
Exactly. They knew times would change, so they provided a way for the Constitution to evolve with the nation. Section 1 lays out the ways to propose changes,
Okay.
either through Congress with a supermajority vote or by calling a special constitutional convention.
So that's if the government decides on change.
Right.
But what about the people themselves? Can they have a say?
That's what's so unique about the 1987 Constitution. They gave the people the power to propose amendments directly
Wow.
through something called an initiative. It's described in Section 2, and it needs a petition signed by a lot of registered voters,
Okay.
making sure every district is represented.
So they're putting a lot of trust in the people to shape their own future.
They are, but there are safeguards to prevent constant or unnecessary changes.
Right. I was going to say there have to be some checks and balances.
Absolutely. They made
Okay.
sure no amendment by initiative can be proposed within 5 years of the Constitution being ratified, or more than once every 5 years after that.
So it's not a process to be taken lightly.
Yeah. No, it's about making sure any proposed changes have real support.
Right. It has to reflect the will of the people, but proposing changes is one thing, getting them enacted is another.
Right. Any proposed amendment, whether from Congress, a convention, or an initiative, has to go to the people for a vote, a nationwide plebiscite.
So it's back to the people.
It is Section 4 lays out the rules, and it needs a majority vote for ratification.
A true test of democracy. So the Filipino people have the final say.
They do.
That's powerful. Now, this constitution came about at a specific point in their history.
It did.
Are there parts that address the shift from the old regime?
Yes, that's where Article 8 comes in, transitory provisions.
Okay.
They knew they needed a smooth transition, and they outlined the steps very carefully.
So it's a bridge between the old and the new.
Exactly. They cover things like setting the date for the first elections,
Right.
making sure existing laws that didn't clash with the new Constitution stayed in effect,
Okay.
and even extending the terms of the current president and vice president to align with the new election schedule.
So it's about smoothing out the bumps and making sure the new government could get started right away.
Yes, they wanted a seamless transition.
Yeah.
What about existing treaties? Did they just throw out all the old agreements?
That's a good question.
Not at all. Section 4 requires that any unratified treaties or international agreements can't be renewed or extended without a two-thirds vote from the Senate.
Okay.
It's about maintaining those international obligations while giving the new government a chance to review them.
So they're being cautious on the global stage.
Yes, balancing continuity with the need to reassess their commitments.
Hmm.
Now, a major goal of this Constitution was decentralizing power and empowering local governments.
Right.
Section 8 is interesting. It gave the president the authority to create the Metropolitan Manila Authority,
Okay.
bringing together the leaders of all the local government units in that huge urban area.
Right.
It's a temporary measure to handle the unique challenges of governing a megacity while they develop more permanent structures.
Makes sense. Like a temporary fix while they build a more decentralized system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I imagine switching to a new legal system also means restructuring the courts.
It does.
How do they handle that?
Yeah.
Section 10 is key. It makes sure all the existing courts keep functioning, but it also allows for a gradual process of reform and alignment with the new Constitution.
Right. So keeping things running while also adapting.
They knew they needed both continuity and change within the judicial system.
So much thought went into these transitory provisions.
There was a lot of foresight.
They really wanted to ensure a smooth transition to this new Philippines.
They did.
Ah,
They valued stability even while making big changes.
they were thinking long term.
They were building for the future. And speaking of the future, we can't forget that power that people have to directly amend the Constitution.
Right.
It shows how much they believe in the people shaping their own destiny.
It's at the heart of democracy.
Right.
This Constitution isn't just a document. It's a living thing that can grow and change with the nation.
Exactly. It's a reminder that a Constitution is about people, about their values, their hopes, their dreams for a better future.
That's a great way to put it.
And the 1987 Philippine Constitution, with all its details and complexities, really captures that spirit. It's something worth revisiting, thinking about, and finding inspiration in.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our deep dive into the 1987 Philippine Constitution. I hope you found it as interesting as we did. It's a testament to the resilience, the vision, and the democratic spirit of the Filipino people. Thanks for joining us.